Trump once said that it's good to be underestimated. And maybe that's why he's running the executive branch the way he is. He gets a lot of negative press, and most of this is deserved because of his communication or things like that. And, there's a lot of problems with the Trump presidency. One of his biggest problems is where he gets his information. And his second biggest problem is the appointments he makes to the executive branch. And the third biggest problem is how he communicates in general. When we look at the biggest problem that faces Trump right now, it's where he gets his information. And one of the first things that he did when he was actually elected president was to appoint Steve Bannon, which Steve Bannon was an editor of Breitbart magazine. Well, website anyway. And Breitbart has been known to share false information or articles that blow the truth out of proportion or anything like that just to get their point across. So if Trump trusts somebody who believes in this stuff, that's a huge problem. And but that's not everything of what his problem is, but because Trump has a cable news addiction as well when we're talking about where he gets his information from. There's an article the New York Times put out, and it's Inside Trump's Hour-by-Hour Battle for Self-Preservation. In this article, the first thing it starts out with is Trump's beginning the day at 5:30 in the morning. He turns on the TV, and he flips to these certain programs, and you can tell flips these certain programs in his rhetoric and those kind of things like that. And we'll get to that a little bit later in the speech here. Trump has also made an appearance on places like Infowars, which is a conspiracy theory news outlet. And, I say it in quotes because it's not a very legitimate place. Newsweek put an article out, Who is Alex Jones? His top 5 conspiracy theories. And they were doing it ahead of the NBC's Megyn Kelly interview. She interviewed him because this has become such a big topic. Trump's actually appeared on Infowars before. And Alex Jones actually believes in stuff like, and this is his deepest conspiracy right here, is the world's elites are planning on exterminating 80% of the population, and then they're going to use technology to live forever. It's really hard to take him seriously when he really actually believes this, and everything's rooted back to this. So, any piece of news or anything like that he sees is going to root back to this. How is that influencing our president when he comes on the show and says, oh, you have a great reputation and you'll be really pleased with my presidency. I guarantee it. It comes hand in hand. And part of that, though, is that part of the problem with Trump's presidency, too, is that he makes bad appointments. I know at the very beginning, when he was running for president, when he was running for primaries, those kind of things like that, he was talking about how he can choose the best people to run the government with him. Like he doesn't necessarily know everything, so he's going to choose the best people to run things. And he points back to his business career and stuff like that. The evidence shows different. NPR ran an article called White House Staff Turnover was already record-setting and then more advisors left. And the interesting thing about this article is that it shows that 43% of the top positions in the White House have turned over from Trump. This is huge. This is staggering. They put these numbers up against other presidents' 2-year turnover. 2 years. The other presidents had less turnover in 2 years, by far less turnover in 2 years than President Trump has had in his presidency already. And the firings are in question as well because this kind of comes into the next topic, how Trump communicates. His tweeting platform has become a problem. And I know in his election, right before the actual election, that week before, his advisor actually took his phone away from him because of his tweeting. And it's because he does things like when he thinks about firing somebody, he tweets it. He doesn't go to his people in the White House and tell them why he thinks he should do this and get advice on it. He just tweets it, and then it happens. We've had that with firings, and now we've had it with the bombing of Syria. He told Russia in a tweet that the bombs are coming and they're fast and smart and all this stuff like that. And it gave Russia a chance to respond to this before it even happened. Some would say that's a good thing, but he's also criticized Barack Obama for doing the same thing, showing his hand before he actually does something. So it's a little bit interesting that it's okay for him to do it, but it's not okay for Barack Obama to do it. So the other thing is, on his communication platform, he continuously denies evidence that he is something, he does something, he did this, he communicates this way. And one way that I've tied this back to my original point of where he gets his information is there was a Time magazine article that Donald Trump said he doesn't watch cable news. He tweets show he does. And this article kind of comes back and says, okay, here's the evidence. And what it shows is that Trump really does watch a lot of cable news. This kind of comes, this is Trump's statements here come back to the New York Times article that I referenced earlier, Inside Trump's Hour-by-Hour Battle for Self-Preservation. And what's interesting about that is that you could see it in his tweets. So if you follow this article, you could see that he uses the exact same terminology, believes the exact same things that Fox and Friends believe, or whatever, in that same time frame that it was on, showing it's just interesting that he chooses not to deny the information. And the problem with this is that he's losing his credibility as president. So it's hard to believe what he says. You know, I know that in my personal belief that when I hear him say something, I'm like, well, I have to check that. I have to re-reference that. And why should I have to do that for my president? That's why there's many problems with President Trump's presidency. And we went over the biggest problem where he gets his information. And the second biggest problem is his appointment of his positions. And the third biggest problem is how he communicates. There's no way that I could go over all the problems within a 10-minute speech here, but I hope that I've kind of convinced you to start looking at some of this data, some of the evidence, and make your own decisions. We have an election in 2020, and it's important for you to vote and for you to express your opinion. So please do that, and I would like any feedback that you have from me. Thank you very much.